So I've been playing a little somewhat anticipated game called God of War Ragnarok, and I am happy to report that it is freaking amazing. We all expected great things from Santa Monica Studio. Their last outing with God of War 2018, of course, won Game of the Year, beating out Red Dead Redemption 2, which was a titan in its own right. And some people even called it Game of the Generation, which is high praise, to say the very least. Fast forward 4 years, we're dealing with the sequel now. It is everything we hoped and dreamed it would be, at least based on my exposure to the game thus far. And in this video, I'm going to share a couple of broad thoughts on it, but I'm not going to get into detailed specifics or spoilers or anything like that. This is a game that truly deserves a media blackout. So if you decide you just want to, okay, Luke likes it, cool, and click off, I totally understand. But just know that I respect your right to enjoy this game spoiler free. So I'm going to take very careful consideration of everything I say and point to so that it doesn't spoil the experience. But yeah, I mean, for sure, stay off Twitter, stay off of Reddit. Don't look at any of that stuff. The game is going to start leaking all over the place almost certainly in the near future. So just don't risk it because there's a lot here to be spoiled. Don't risk it. Now, I do want to say a quick thank you to PlayStation for sending over a review code for this game. It's literally a dream come true to be able to cover a game of this scale and magnitude. I mean, 4 years ago, I remember playing God of War 2018 in my first ever apartment out of high school. And I played it on this rinky-dink little TV, and it was so far in the future to think that I'd one day be covering a sequel for this, and that I would be contacting the team and PlayStation and getting review codes. It's a dream come true. So truly, thank you. I'm living the dream, and thank you to the viewers who make this possible. I owe it all to you. That being said, I do think it's important to note that I received my copy of this game technically 24 hours or so before this review embargo lifts officially. So that doesn't really line up considering that this game is about 50 hours long. So even if I played all the way through the night, I still would not finish the game in time. So this video is based off of about 12 hours of gameplay experience with everything they have to offer here so far. By some accounts and by some things I've heard from the team, that could be anywhere from halfway through the main story, if you're just doing the main story, to only a quarter to a sixth of what the game actually has to offer in terms of content. What I will say is that at this point, we're still clipping along. I feel like I've got a ton left to see. I don't feel at all like things are coming together to end anytime soon. So I am very, very happy with where I'm at. But just understand, this is a work in progress review. I will be making a full review having finished the game in the next few days, closer to launch. Still before the launch officially comes out, but make sure to subscribe and ring that bell to get notified of when the full review gets launched with all of the game's content considered and evaluated in comprehension. What this video is trying to do is to give you an overarching idea of what the game has to offer based on my time with it thus far. Take it or leave it. Here we go. Now, I and many other people, I think, were expecting God of War Ragnarok to offer pretty much what God of War 2018 did, but just a lot more stuff, just that game, but more, like a big DLC that cost $70. And one of the reasons I thought that, and many others did as well, is because this game was originally scheduled for last year to release. So a lot of us just assumed, wrongly of course, that if they only were planning on spending 3 years developing the game, there probably wasn't that much that they could do. However, I am glad to report that literally everything that God of War did in 2018 is greatly improved upon in pretty much every conceivable way in Ragnarok. Everything from the combat to the boss fights to the action, even to something as little and simple as navigating a level, feels more epic and grand. And with regards to the boss fights, within the first 5 hours, I counted 7 different boss encounters that ranged from huge boss fights that I would honestly say were more impressive than anything they did in God of War 2018, to smaller boss fights that, while certainly lessened in scope, still featured an enemy with unique combat animations, abilities, and attacks that required some attention and focus on the part of the player, and usually offered some really sweet rewards as well. It was my biggest problem with God of War 2018 was that the game didn't feel epic enough, and in this game, from, I kid you not, the first 7 minutes, you are in for a real treat. The game starts epic and it keeps itself feeling epic all the way through. It paces itself tremendously well, and just when you think you've reached a moment of calm respite, things are probably going to start getting crazy very, very quickly. And not a little crazy, like crazy, crazy. Again, I would love to show you clips and snippets to prove this point, but I respect you. I'm not going to show you spoilers. I want you to have some of these moments for yourself. I can't wait for when we do the big critique and I can just like show you everything and spoil everything. It's going to be great. Again, subscribe and ring the bell for the big critique that'll probably go up like late November, early December, where we break down the whole game in excruciating detail. It's going to be awesome. So again, sub and ring the bell and blah, blah, blah for that. Now, in addition to the game feeling generally more epic, they've also taken care to make sure that the realms that you visit feel markedly more alive than they did in the last game. And this is important because Ragnarok is coming. And so if you want that to have any meaning or weight, you need to make sure that these realms feel like they're lived in and have citizens and people whose lives are at stake. In 2018, the extent of NPCs were pretty much relegated almost exclusively to the secondary cast or to little like ghosty ghoulies that you would find while out exploring the Lake of Nine, and there really wasn't much more to it than that. The game is also generally polished to absolute perfection. I have been looking out for bugs and glitches, and the only one I could find that I would quantify as a bug is during a mini boss fight against a bear, where the bear froze for like 2 seconds and then was fine. This is like the only thing that I could come up with. And even this, I'm not sure was a bug or if it was my freezing effect on my axe taking effect. I really am not sure, but it felt like a bug, so I'm going to count it as that. But that's the only thing I've come across that I could possibly say was weird or caused me pause. Everything else in the game is polished like crazy. And it's not just the gameplay mechanics, it's also the writing. There's a ton of cutscene content here. All of the dialogue has been carefully written and pieced together, and there are moments that are genuinely hilarious.
Use your words, brother.
Just across the board, you can tell that they really took their time with this and they went back, they refined things, they tried new things, and they went back and worked it and changed it, and it just feels tight and polished, refined, and great. And I feel like I should also say that there is a lot more adult language this time around. The writing just in general feels much more mature than it did in the last game, which I guess makes sense. In the last game, you were running around with a kid. Now you're running around with a teenager. So it makes sense that he might have a bit of a potty mouth and everybody else around him might as well. And he's starting to pick up on some of the language from like Brock and Sindri. It's a good touch. And I actually found it initially a little startling. I was like, what did Atreus say? Oh, geez. But you know, it actually ends up making sense. And Kratos has to have the daddy talk with him. Don't use bad language, boy. Is that what you want people remembering you? Is that what you want your last word to be? You know, it's cute. It's cute. And I think it ties together really, really well. And it fits the darker tone that this game has. But let's address the elephant in the room. This game had crazy high expectations, which of course you would expect it to have because the last game in the franchise won Game of the Year and is one of the most highly lauded and praised games of all time. So people expected great things, and Santa Monica Studio, as far as I've seen thus far, has delivered. And one of the ways that they've managed to do that is by subverting expectations consistently. This is crucial because it makes sure that whenever a player thinks they know what's going on or thinks that they know what is going to happen, things get shaken up and change. This could take the form of everything from small fourth wall breaks to combat encounters you think are over but are actually just beginning, or to broad sweeping combat changes that are so comprehensive they feel like you are forced to relearn the combat system from scratch with a moment's notice. It really does feel like the writers sat around a table and they wrote out what the script was going to be, and then they went back through it and said, okay, well, what would fans expect us to do here? And if what they had written was what fans expected them to do, they add in a couple of little hooks and traps and little, twists here and there to shake things up just so it doesn't feel so predictable the entire way through, which is one of the broader themes of the story, of course, which is that nobody's fate is written and that you can write your own fate. You just have to get out there and do it. I guess that's the moral of the story. I haven't finished it clearly. And when you pair with the subversion of expectations, the general improvements across the board, you end up with a game that is just as surprising as it is tremendous. And I'm also happy to report that the combat changes they've made are also significant enough to feel like a markedly improved system over the original game. It's the same basic combat system to begin, but as the game carries on, there's going to be a lot of things introduced that shake it up. Again, I would like to show you some of these, but for spoiler reasons, I'm not going to. So just be warned and be aware that there's a lot of things they do later in the game that keep things interesting. In fact, thus far, I only have really 2 critiques and things that I would point out as potential issues with the game. And that is that the puzzles are back and they are just as tedious and annoying as ever. Were you hoping that you wouldn't have to swing your axe randomly at posts to get them to spin and then hit a target before it lowers back down? Well, guess what? That's still here. You got to do more of it. My broader frustration with these is that they aren't difficult. They're just tedious. The moment you walk into one of these puzzle rooms, you know exactly what you have to do. It's just a matter of going through the motions of running over there, throwing your axe there, jump over here, pull that lever, recall your axe, throw it over there. You know what you have to do. It's not hard. It's not interesting. It's just tedious. It's just built to take time out of your day to fill it out. And it can get more annoying than fun. And the fact that I'm, by most accounts, only a quarter of the way through the game kind of worries me because these puzzles are already growing a little tedious and repetitive. So unless they can really shake it up as time goes by, I'm not sure how old it's going to get. And the other thing I would point out is that the combat in general, while it feels dynamic, the balanced setting, which is what it defaults to, feels too easy, if I'm being honest. I think if you play through God of War 2018 even recently and you felt like you had a pretty decent handle on that combat system, I would recommend playing this on hard or even give me God of War, because the game is just calibrated to be a little more forgiving than I personally like, but that's just my subjective opinion. But all in all, I expected a lot, and I still do expect a lot as I continue to play this game. And they continually surprise me. And time again, every opportunity they have, they are impressing me more and more and more. There's been several moments in cutscenes and combat sequences where I had to like actually pause after it finished and try to figure out how the hell they pulled that off. Like, it's a single cut camera. How did they do that transition to here with that lighting shift and then the model swapping out? I genuinely don't know how they did some of the stuff they do, even in the first 45 minutes of the game. Again, I don't want to show any specific spoilers of this type of thing, but there's so much here that's just wildly impressive. It's genuinely jaw-dropping in moments. All told, I really, really love the game thus far, and I'm going to keep blasting through it, and I will have a comprehensive review for you very soon. But I'm not going to take up too much more of your time. Like I said, this is a quick little thing to offer my initial impressions and thoughts of the game. Thank you again to PlayStation for sending the review code over, full stop, period. Even if it showed up a little bit, at the last minute, I still am extremely thankful. And we will have the review going up in the next few days. And because the review embargo is like almost a whole week before the game launches, there's plenty of time for me to still finish the game and get the full review out and still be before the game launches, which if that doesn't show confidence in your product, I don't know what does. But with that, I'm going to get back to it. So if you'll excuse me and leave me alone, I have a date, so.